out the hand, switch, truth on swoosh. Hitters don't miss. Already just added a Tourney up to my list. Bitch, death wish, not to be messed with, tested quiz. They shooting shots, hitting bricks, we testing the kids.
Hey, Deep Thrones family. Welcome to another edition of the Deep Thrones Pod's Map Time. This map time is ambitious, and it's probably going to piss me off because I might mess up. But we are doing a speed run. That's right. I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes. A speed run of Robert's Rebellion. Just showing a few spark notes of where all the big stuff happened during Robert's Rebellion, the events that lead up to Game of Thrones as we know it in Season 1 with Robert Baratheon as king, the Targaryen dynasty destroyed. This is where it all began. We're going to annotate it. Of course, it all takes place here with the big W at Westeros. All right, so I'm going to zoom in on the map to where a lot of the significant stuff happens, okay? So let's just kind of, I think that's pretty good right there. To start, it all takes place in this general vicinity. Of course, the armies from the north are involved, from Dorne are involved. They're kind of off the map right now, but that's okay. The first point of interest, before we can get into Robert's Rebellion, we have to understand why the Mad King started to go crazy. Look no further than this castle right here. That's Duskendale. I'm sure if you're even a casual fan of Game of Thrones, you have heard of the Defiance of Duskendale. The Mad King essentially had been raising taxes. Really, Tywin Lannister, the Hand of the King, had been raising taxes on a lot of these small port cities, making sure that the crown was well paid for. And receiving its dues from every essentially corner of Westeros. Duskendale right there used to be a proud port city that used to rack in the dough, all right? But as you can see, King's Landing is there. You know, you got Dragonstone over here. You got Gulltown here up in the north. You got White Harbor. There's a lot of solid coastal cities now, and Duskendale had fallen into sort of harder times. And the king himself went to make common cause with Duskendale with a small household sort of guard against Tywin Lannister's, recommendation. The king goes, the Defiance of Duskendale happens. They throw him in prison. They keep him as a hostage. They try to make common cause with Tywin Lannister. Rhaegar shows up. They're essentially besieging the city outside its gates. The Mad King slips further and further into madness. This is where his distrust of Rhaegar and Tywin really started because he felt that they were being very flippant with his life as he was prisoner. This is where Barristan Selmy, Barristan the Bold, climbed the walls in the cover of darkness and set the Mad King free. Now, full Mad King after this. They, of course, eventually the Duskendale, the Defiance of Duskendale goes south for the captors. They are then taken prisoner, put to the sword. The Mad King has everyone brutally tortured and killed after he's saved. And his distrust for Rhaegar and Tywin is through the roof. Mad King then essentially shelters himself in King's Landing. No one's allowed near him with swords, any of that good stuff. And this is when Rhaegar plans the tourney at Harrenhal. Rhaegar Targaryen, the heir to the throne, the Mad King's eldest son, Daenerys Targaryen's older brother, plans this tournament. Lavish. The prizes are some of the largest purse of gold dragons you could win at a tourney in all of Westeros history. Many believe this was Rhaegar's attempt to gain favor with the other lords to possibly supplant the Mad King. And by many, I mean the Mad King thought that too. He actually shows up to the tourney at Harrenhal. No one expects him to be there, including Rhaegar. Mad King is there. His hair is in knots. His nails are long. He's clearly losing it. And at this tourney is, of course, where Rhaegar famously crowns Lyanna Stark with the favor after he wins the tourney. And not his own wife, Elia Martell. Very controversial. After this tourney, as well, is when Rhaegar and Lyanna disappear. They go south to Dorne. No one knows they go there, of course, except Rhaegar and Lyanna. The Starks themselves from the north believe Lyanna has been kidnapped by Rhaegar. Not that she went willingly, because, of course, Lyanna Stark at this point is betrothed to Robert Baratheon. So she's supposed to marry Robert Baratheon. Rhaegar is married to Elia Martell and has 2 children with her. And the Starks are essentially seething mad that their daughter has been kidnapped. We zoom out. And all the way from Winterfell down the King's Road, the Starks make their way to King's Landing right here. And by Starks, I mean the Lord of the House, which is, of course, Rickard Stark. And his son, his eldest son, Brandon Stark. This is Ned Stark and Benjen Stark and Lyanna Stark, oldest brother. They go there. They demand Rhaegar's life. They demand a trial, and even though the Mad King himself doesn't trust Rhaegar at this point, he will have no one speak ill of the royal family. The Mad King does what's known as, I think, the Trial of Fire and Steel. Rickard Stark is placed in his armor and roasted alive upon a pyre, as Brandon Stark is attached to some Tyroshi torture device around his neck. He tries to move closer and closer to his father to cut him free, and every time he does, that thing tightens, killing Brandon Stark and, of course, Rickard Stark. So that was the trip that they made down from Winterfell down to King's Landing. Things go south for them real quick. Full Mad King. 2 people are warding in the Eyrie at this point in time. Robert Baratheon, who is the spurned lover of Lyanna Stark, the kidnapped betrothed by Rhaegar Targaryen, and Ned Stark, the now Lord of Winterfell, since his father and eldest brother are dead. And the Mad King in King's Landing demands their heads. He sends letters to the Eyrie, the Eyrie is led by Jon Arryn, the Vale of Arryn. Of course, the Vale is the region. The Eyrie is the main castle. He says, Jon Arryn, send me the heads of Ned and Robert. Jon Arryn says, fuck yourself. I'm not doing it. These guys are like sons to me. And thus, Robert's rebellion officially begins with the spurning of Jon Arryn to the Mad King. Jon Arryn calls the banners of the Vale. All of them respond except Goldtown. Goldtown doesn't know what to do. They stay loyal to the Mad King. So Jon Arryn, with a host of all the Vale armies in this region, and Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon ascend on Goldtown because they need this port city. It is a significant port city to the cause. They crush Goldtown in a quick battle, a decisive battle. Robert Baratheon leads the van through the gates, and Goldtown is one, which allows Robert Baratheon to slip by the royal army to Storm's End to gather his host, and it allows Ned Stark, who actually kind of traverses through the fingers in the Mountains of the Moon, and then he takes a vessel up to White Harbor to the north to gather his force. So essentially all these houses loyal to the Mad King are in the south. A lot of the houses loyal to the Starks are in the north. For instance, Brandon Stark, who was killed by the Mad King, was betrothed to Catelyn Tully of Riverrun to assure that they stay loyal to the rebellion cause. Ned Stark takes his brother's place, and he will marry Catelyn Tully. So the Riverrun, the North, and the Eyrie, all loyal to Robert Baratheon. The Stormlands are mixed. Some of them stay loyal to the crown. A lot of them, because Robert Baratheon is the Lord of Storm's End, do follow Robert into battle. And of course, the Crownlands, the Reach, Dorne are all loyal to the Mad King. The Westerlands, famously not involved. They're staying out of it at this point in time, but we'll get to that in a second. Robert makes it back to Storm's End. He realizes some of his lords are not participating. They do not join Robert's cause. And he knows that 3 of them are going to Summerhall, a famous Targaryen vacation home, to gather their host. Robert gets their force first. He meets them with a force of Stormlords who stayed loyal to him, and he immediately crushes their armies. I believe one of them is slain in battle of those significant lords. 2 of those lords are taken captive, and instead of executing them, Robert hosts them to drinking. He hangs out with them, and by the end of the night, as they were just battling the day before, these lords who were taken captive by Robert fall in love with him. I think he's hilarious. I think he's a great leader of men, and they, who just fought him on behalf of the Mad King, commit their armies to Robert's cause and take up swords with him. And the next big battle happens here. This is Ashford. At Ashford, Robert Baratheon suffers his only loss of the entire rebellion. He goes there from Summerhall with this giant host. He is met there by the Tyrells of Highgarden, right here. They meet him there. Their army is led by Mace Tyrell and also Randall Tarley, of course, Samwell Tarley's father, a significant military mind, defeats Robert pretty decisively with an immense army from the Reach. Robert flees north, injured and wounded, his army essentially in absolute disarray, and instead of pursuing, Mace Tyrell takes his army east and lays siege to Storm's End. A politically savvy move from Mace Tyrell, because the truth is he didn't want to pursue Robert because he kind of wanted to see how this was going to go. He knew that he, regardless, win or lose for the Mad King, Mace saw an opportunity for him to gain favor with either winner, which was a very smart tactic. He lays siege to Storm's End. Storm's End is right here. This is being held by Stannis Baratheon, Robert's younger brother, at the order of Robert. He tells Stannis, do not give up the castle. Stannis has 500 men, completely surrounded by the Tyrells, and the red wine fleet out on the water here. They're getting no resources, no food. For years on end here, Stannis' castle is starving. They're eating rats, they're eating the horses, they're eating dogs. They would have eaten their own dead if it wasn't for Sir Davos Seaworth, a smuggler who heard about the siege, felt bad, and in the cover of darkness, sneaks into Storm's End with his little black sailboat on a moonless night with some potatoes, some salt beef, and of course, famously, onions, which gave him the title of the Onion Knight. But it's important. This is really what cauterizes Stannis' soul and his heart to being this firm kind of angry man at the time of Game of Thrones, because he held Storm's End for Robert. He knelt to his younger brother as opposed to his king and did what was asked of him. And Robert, after the war, spurns him. He gives Storm's End to Renly, and he gives Stannis Dragonstone, which for the Targaryens is seen as the seat in waiting for the heir to the throne. To the Baratheons, it means nothing. That's a Targaryen custom. We just conquered this 300-year-old dynasty, and you're giving me Dragonstone after our house, our family's house, was held by me against heavy resistance. People were starving. I had to make the firm decisions. Renly was just a child. And Stannis, in the face of that siege from Mace Tyrell, holding Storm's End. All right, from Storm's End, we go to the Battle of the Bells, which happens at Stony Sept. This is huge. Robert, after he flees from Ashford, which again was down here, goes up to Stony Sept. That's where he's hiding out. He's kind of licking his wounds there. The Mad King sends a force led by Jon Connington to the Stony Sept, where they then are essentially looking for Robert and his men. Robert and his men are hiding amongst the common folk, and the common folk at Stony Sept love them. They love the rebels. They hate the loyalist army. They think Robert's awesome, like so many people before them. Robert is hiding within the city. Jon Connington and his men are going door to door trying to figure out who's just a normal city folk, who's part of Robert's military. And what they don't know, from River Run, a massive host of people from the Eyrie, led by Jon Arryn, from River Run, led by Hoster Tully, the father of Catelyn Stark, who is engaged to Ned Stark, and Ned Stark's men from the north. A massive rebel army descends on Stony Sept. The Battle of the Bells begins. As soon as they attack, people start ringing the bells, and as Jon Connington's army is going door to door looking for Robert, they don't know that outside the gates, a massive army is attacking. They're in disarray. They're completely surrounded. They're fleeing. It is said that Robert's men started coming out of buildings and stuff, hacking them down, as Ned, Hoster, and Jon Arryn also begin to get in the fray. And it's rumored that Robert Baratheon himself stepped out of a brothel to immediately join the fighting with his historic warhammer. The Loyalist army is routed. Jon Connington flees back to King's Landing, where the Mad King immediately strips him of his titles and his lands and sends him to Essos in exile. And it's kind of interesting that he didn't kill him, because the Mad King at this point is totally paranoid, but he exiles him. He does not kill him. From there, Robert's army is feeling super confident. They go north to gather all of their forces. And Rhaegar Targaryen ascends from Dorne, finally making it from Dorne back to King's Landing. Dorne, of course, down this way at the bottom of the map, the Dornish Mountains right there. And there he essentially gathers what remains of any loyalist host to the Mad King. He heads north to take on Robert's army. Robert heads south to take on his army, and they meet right here, what becomes known as the Ruby Ford, but it's honestly just a crossing of the Trident at this point in time. This is about right here where that battle takes place. Rhaegar's military gets there. They're crossing the Trident, and as they make it across the Trident, Robert wisely pinches down onto Rhaegar's army. Rhaegar's army is stuck between Robert Baratheon and the Trident. It's said to be a very long, very bloody, very epic battle. The Dornish prince at this time, I think it's Elia Martell's uncle, is holding the right flank with his spearmen, and Robert's army is said to completely rout it. Elia Martell's uncle is killed. The Dornish ranks essentially go into disarray. They start to retreat. Rhaegar in this area, right in essentially the middle of the battle, as if the gods themselves willed it, meets Robert in one-on-one combat. It is a long battle. It's not quick. It is said to be very epic. Robert gets almost mortally wounded. Rhaegar gets wounded. They're going back and forth. Rhaegar wielding a sword with his beautiful armor of red rubies, the house sigil of Targaryen with the three-headed dragon. It's red. It's gorgeous. Robert wearing the gold and black with the crowned stag of House Baratheon wielding his warhammer. And after going back and forth for some time, Robert finally brings his warhammer down on Rhaegar Targaryen's chest, crushing in that breastplate, killing Rhaegar Targaryen. His rubies are said to scatter all over the Trident, hence the ruby ford. And it's said that in the time of Game of Thrones, people still found rubies from Rhaegar's breastplate. Rhaegar is dead. His entire army, their ranks completely break. They flee. Their crown prince is deceased. Robert is mortally wounded, so not mortally, I'm sorry, very badly wounded, so he now has to lick his wounds, and he trusts his best friend Ned Stark to lead a very injured, slow-moving host down south to King's Landing. But word has reached all of the Seven Kingdoms at this point that Rhaegar Targaryen is dead, and it's now time for the Lion of Casterly Rock to enter the fray. He goes down the Gold Road all the way to King's Landing with a host. He is met outside the gates by, of course, the Gold Cloaks, the city watch, and they're like, hey, Tywin Lannister is here. The Mad King doesn't know who to trust. The Mad King is completely paranoid at this point. He has his wife and his remaining children, Viserys, and his wife is pregnant at this point with Daenerys, ushered off to Dragonstone. The Mad King does not trust Tywin. Grand Maester Pycelle convinces him to trust Tywin. The Mad King lets the Lannisters inside his gates, and they sack the city. And when Ned Stark gets there, the famous burn them all. Jaime Lannister has slain the pyromancer because the Mad King wanted to burn the city down with wildfire, and he's killed the Mad King, the king that he was sworn to as his Kingsguard. And there Ned walks in the throne room to see Jaime sitting on the throne with the Mad King dead at his feet. Jaime Lannister's father, Tywin, is sacking the city. He has murdered innocent children. He's murdered Elia Martell. Robert himself was fine with it, saying, a dead dragon is a good dragon, even babes. Ned Stark is disgusted by this. He's disgusted by Jaime forsaking his oath. He's disgusted by Tywin Lannister killing innocents. He's disgusted by his best friend, quite frankly, being fine with innocents being killed. In the last couple acts of the Civil War here, Ned Stark goes to Storm's End to lift the siege of Stannis Baratheon. Mace Tyrell doesn't lift a single sword. He immediately bends, acknowledges his new king, takes his army south, back to Highgarden, and never even tries to fight Ned. Ned's then final act is to continue south into Dorne. If I can just quickly move this a little bit, there we go. And here he goes and finds the Tower of Joy, which is in this region right here. And that is where he finds his sister, Lyanna Stark, dead, having just given birth, or dying, having just given birth to a baby boy, who, of course, we all know, the bastard of the North, Jon Snow. And Ned then keeps that brutal secret from Robert, because as he saw, Robert is not going to hesitate to kill any babes that share Targaryen blood. And Ned refuses to let his sister's dying wish that he protect his son be ruined by Robert's bloodlust at this point. Sorry if I messed anything up. That was my attempt at a speed run of Robert's Rebellion and the Mad King's reign. I hope you liked it, and please be sure to like, share, subscribe to Deep Thrones Pod. Listen to the pod when you get the chance, and that was another episode of Map Time.
Check out the hand switch, shooters on swoosh, hitters don't miss. Aria just added a Tourney to my list. Bitch, death wish, not to be messed with, tested quiz. They shooting shots.